The diplomatic vessel cut through the darkness of space like a silver needle threading through black cloth. Inside the ship, Ambassador Han Sol Kim stood before the observation window, watching the stars drift past in silence. His reflection stared back at him, a man in his 50s with tired eyes and a face that had seen too many difficult decisions. Behind him, the rest of the human delegation prepared for what might be the most important meeting in Earth's history. Day 1 Park approached, his military uniform pristine despite the 3-week journey. He was younger than Han Sol, barely 40, but his eyes carried the weight of someone who had seen war up close. "We're approaching the station," he said quietly. "First visual contact in 10 minutes. Han Sol nodded but said nothing. 50 years. It had been 50 years since humanity's first contact with alien life, and it had almost destroyed them. Automated defense drones had appeared in Earth's orbit without warning, weapons charging. Only quick thinking and a desperate surrender had saved them. The drones had withdrawn, but the message was clear: humanity was not welcome in the stars. But humanity had not been idle during those 50 years. Han Sol knew what waited in the darkness beyond Earth, hidden in the cold reaches of the Oort cloud. He knew about the weapons, the ships, the preparations. He also knew that the galaxy could not learn about any of it, not yet. "Ambassador," a soft voice called. Ji-Woo Choi, the team's xenobiologist, moved gracefully across the deck. She carried a data tablet covered in alien scripts and symbols. "I've finished the analysis on the Council's dominant species. The Thessic Empire controls the military, the Vorn Collective handles trade and resources, and the Krell Swarm manages logistics and labor. Together, they've ruled the galaxy for over 2,000 years. And they want to add us to their collection," Day 1 muttered. "They think they're doing us a favor," Ji-Woo corrected. "In their minds, younger species need guidance. Protection. Protection," Han Sol repeated the word like it tasted bitter. He had read the preliminary terms sent by the Council. Protection meant control. It meant Earth would surrender its military, open its borders to alien oversight, and provide whatever resources the Council demanded. It meant humanity would become a servant species. The station appeared ahead, growing larger with each passing moment. It was massive, easily the size of a small moon, constructed from materials that gleamed like polished bone. Dozens of alien ships orbited it, their designs strange and incomprehensible to human eyes. Some were organic, others crystalline, and some seemed to be made of pure energy held in geometric patterns. "They built this to intimidate," Day 1 observed. "Make us feel small." "It's working," someone whispered from the back of the bridge. The human ship was guided into a docking bay by automated systems. No one spoke as the vessel settled into place with a gentle thud. Han Sol straightened his formal robes, traditional Korean hanbok modified for diplomatic occasions. He wanted the aliens to see Earth's culture, its history, its dignity. The airlock opened, and the delegation stepped into a world unlike anything they had imagined. The station's interior was vast, with ceilings that stretched hundreds of meters overhead. Alien species of every conceivable shape moved through the corridors. Some walked, others floated, and a few seemed to phase in and out of reality itself. The air tasted strange, processed and recycled through systems designed for 100 different atmospheres. An escort awaited them. The creature was tall, easily 3 meters, with scales that shimmered like oil on water. Its eyes were golden and vertical, its mouth filled with teeth designed for tearing. This was a Thessic, one of the Empire's warrior caste. "Humans," it said, the word translated through devices all parties wore. "I am Vaktar, General of the Thessic Imperial Fleet. You will follow me to the Council chambers." There was no greeting, no welcome, just a command. Han Sol exchanged glances with Day 1 but nodded. They followed Vaktar through winding corridors, passing more aliens than any human had ever seen. Some stopped to stare at the humans with expressions that might have been curiosity or contempt. It was impossible to tell. The council chamber was a vast circular room with seating arranged in rising tiers. At the center was a platform where Han Solo and his team were directed to stand. Above them, hundreds of alien representatives watched from their seats. The three dominant powers occupied the highest positions, looking down at the humans like judges at a trial. Chancellor Luminex of the Vorn Collective spoke first. Its body was composed of living crystal that pulsed with inner light. Its voice resonated like wind chimes. Humanity. You have been granted the honor of protection by the Galactic Council. This is a privilege few species receive. We are grateful for the Council's attention, Han Solo replied carefully. Though we hoped this meeting would be a discussion between equals, not a judgment. Silence fell across the chamber. Several aliens made sounds that might have been laughter or shock. Vokhtar's scales darkened, a sign of anger. Equals, the Thessic general growled. Your species barely mastered faster-than-light travel. You have no alliances, no trade networks, no military to speak of. You exist at our mercy. We exist because we have the right to exist, Han Solo said quietly. Not because anyone granted us permission. More sounds from the assembled aliens. Some seemed approving, others hostile. The third power, represented by an insectoid creature called Zitkra from the Krell swarm, clicked its mandibles together. Brave words from a species that nearly died when they first touched our automated defenses. You were lucky we showed restraint. Day One's jaw tightened, but he remained silent. Ji Woo placed a gentle hand on his arm, a reminder to stay calm. Chancellor Luminex projected a hologram into the center of the chamber. It showed Earth, beautiful and blue, surrounded by markers indicating resource deposits, population centers, and strategic locations. The terms are simple. You will dismantle any military assets. You will allow council representatives to oversee your government. You will provide resources as requested. In exchange, we will protect you from hostile forces and guide your development. Han Solo studied the hologram, seeing his homeworld reduced to a collection of assets to be exploited. And, if we refuse? Then, you will be left alone, Zitkra said. Without protection. Without trade. Without hope. How long do you think your species will survive in a galaxy full of predators? The threat hung in the air like poison. Han Solo looked at his team, seeing the same thoughts reflected in their eyes. Earth had known this was coming. They had prepared for this exact moment. But, standing here, surrounded by powers that could crush humanity with ease, the weight of the decision felt crushing. We request time to consider the Council's generous offer, Han Solo said finally. Such an important decision requires consultation with our government. Vokhtar snorted. 3 cycles. No more. Return with your answer, or we will assume you have chosen isolation. The delegation was dismissed, escorted back to their ship by silent guards. Once inside, with the doors sealed, Day One let out a breath he had been holding. They're planning to invade regardless of what we say. I know, Han Solo replied. Send an encrypted message to Fleet Admiral Beck. Tell her the peace talks are failing. Tell her to prepare the Shadow Fleet. Ji Woo looked pale. Are we really going to war with the entire galaxy? Han Solo turned back to the observation window, watching the massive station recede into the distance. We're going to show them that humanity doesn't kneel. Not to anyone. Not ever. The ship turned toward home, carrying with it the seeds of a conflict that would reshape the galaxy forever. The second day on the council station began with an unexpected summons. Han Solo was reviewing documents in his quarters when the message arrived. Vokhtar wanted to meet privately, away from the council chambers. The request set off alarms in Han Solo's mind, but refusing would only create suspicion. He brought Kyung-Min Lee with him, the team's intelligence officer. She was young, barely 30, but she had a talent for reading people and situations. Her specialty was finding the truth hidden beneath layers of lies. As they walked through the station's corridors, she whispered observations about their surroundings, noting camera positions and guard rotations. Vokhtar waited in a private chamber decorated with trophies from conquered worlds. Weapons hung on the walls alongside what looked like flags or banners from defeated species. The Thessic general stood with his back to them, studying a display showing Earth's solar system. "Ambassador," Vokhtar said without turning. "Let us speak honestly, as warriors." "I'm a diplomat, not a warrior," Han Solo replied. "All humans are warriors. Your history proves this. Your species has spent thousands of years fighting itself." Vokhtar finally turned, his golden eyes reflecting the light. "This is why we must control you. Before you bring that violence to the galaxy. Or perhaps you fear what we might become if given the chance to grow." Vokhtar's scales darkened again, that sign of anger. "Fear. The Thessic Empire has crushed civilizations older and stronger than yours. We do not fear primitives who barely escaped their own planet." "Then, why this private meeting?" Kyungmin asked quietly. "Why not simply issue your demands in the council chambers?" The Thessic general's mouth twisted into something that might have been a smile. "Because I want you to understand what happens to those who refuse our protection. Come." He led them to another room filled with holographic displays. Each one showed a different world, different species. Vokhtar activated them one by one. The Yarlan. They refused our terms. Their world is now a mining colony, their people scattered as laborers across a dozen systems. Another display. The Prex Collective. They attempted armed resistance. It took us 6 months to break them. Only 10% of their population survived. Display after display, world after world. Each one a cautionary tale of what happened to species who defied the council. Han Solo felt cold rage building in his chest, but he kept his expression neutral. "Do you see?" Vokhtar asked. "This is mercy. We offer you the chance to submit peacefully. Your people will live, your world will remain intact. All we ask is obedience." "All you ask is everything," Han Solo said quietly. Back in the human delegation's quarters, Kyungmin immediately began sweeping for listening devices. She found 3, all sophisticated alien technology, and disabled them with equipment brought from Earth. Once the room was secure, she pulled out her personal tablet. "I managed to access their local network during the tour," she said, fingers flying across the screen. "They're not as careful with their security as they think. Look at this." She projected a series of documents into the air. They were written in alien script, but the translation software decoded them quickly. Han Solo felt his blood turn to ice as he read. "These are invasion plans," he whispered. "Dated weeks before we even arrived," Kyungmin confirmed. "The peace talks are theater. They've already decided to take Earth by force. The only question is whether we make it easy or hard for them." Day One entered the room, his face grim. "I just had a very interesting conversation with a junior officer from the Vorn Collective. Apparently, there's disagreement among the 3 powers about how to divide Earth's resources. The Thessic want our minerals. The Vorn want our biological diversity. The Krell want our labor. They're already dividing us up like a prize," Jiwoo said, horror in her voice. "We're not people to them. We're just resources to be harvested." Han Solo moved to the room's small window, looking out at the stars. Somewhere out there, beyond the visible spectrum, the Shadow Fleet waited. Hundreds of ships, thousands of weapons, all hidden from alien eyes through careful camouflage and deception. 50 years of preparation, of building in secret, of turning humanity's desperate survival into a weapon that could strike back. Send another message to Admiral Beck, he said quietly. Tell her the situation is worse than we thought. Tell her to move the fleet to standby positions. On Earth, in a bunker beneath the Gobi Desert, Fleet Admiral Young Hee Beck received the message with a mixture of anger and satisfaction. She had been preparing for this moment for 15 years, ever since she took command of humanity's hidden military. The woman was in her 60s, gray-haired and steel-eyed, a veteran of Earth's last major conflict before the aliens arrived. Begin Operation Shadow, she ordered. All ships to standby positions. Weapons-free protocols authorized. If they come to Earth, we'll be ready. Around the solar system, things began to move. What looked like mining stations in the asteroid belt retracted their disguises, revealing missile batteries and railgun platforms. Cargo ships drifting near Jupiter's moons suddenly showed their true forms, heavy cruisers bristling with weapons. In the Oort cloud, the main battle fleet powered up their reactors, ready to strike. Back on the Council Station, the third and final meeting was scheduled. This time, all three major powers were present in force. The chamber was packed with representatives from across the galaxy, all gathered to witness humanity's submission. Chancellor Luminex spoke first, its crystalline body pulsing with what might have been satisfaction. Humanity. 3 cycles have passed. The Council requires your answer. Han Solo stood at the center of the platform, his team arrayed behind him. He could feel thousands of alien eyes watching, waiting. Some with pity, others with anticipation. He thought about Earth, about the billions of people trusting him to make the right choice. He thought about the warnings Vokhtar had shown him, the conquered species, the destroyed civilizations. Then, he thought about the Shadow Fleet, waiting in the darkness. The people of Earth have considered the Council's offer carefully, Han Solo began, his voice clear and steady. We have weighed the benefits of your protection against the cost of our freedom. We have looked at your history, your actions, your true intentions. The chamber fell silent. Even the usual background noise of alien conversation ceased. And, our answer is no. Chaos erupted. Aliens surged to their feet, voices raised in dozens of languages. Vokhtar roared something in his own tongue, the translator struggling to keep up. Zitkra's mandibles clicked so rapidly it sounded like machine gun fire. You refuse? Chancellor Luminex's voice cut through the noise like a blade. You refuse the Council's protection? We refuse subjugation disguised as protection, Han Solo replied calmly. We refuse to surrender our freedom, our sovereignty, our right to determine our own future. Earth will remain independent. Then, Earth will stand alone, Vokhtar snarled. And, when the predators come for you, when your civilization burns, remember that we offered you salvation. If predators come, Han Solo said quietly, meeting the Thessic general's golden eyes, they will find that humanity has teeth of its own. Brave words from a defenseless species, Zitkra clicked. Your bravado will not save you when our fleets arrive at your world. Your fleets. Day One spoke for the first time, his voice carrying across the chamber. You mean the invasion forces you prepared weeks before these talks even began? Did you think we wouldn't find out? More chaos. Accusations flew between the three powers and the human delegation. Smaller species watched with what might have been admiration or fear. The carefully constructed theater of the peace talks collapsed into confusion. Chancellor Luminex's crystalline form blazed with light, a sign of extreme emotion. You dare accuse the Council of deception? I accuse you of planning genocide, Han Solo said, his voice hard. I accuse you of treating sapient species like property. I accuse you of building an empire on the backs of enslaved civilizations. He pulled out a data chip and threw it onto the platform. Those are your own invasion plans. Your own documents. Proof of your intentions. Vokhtar's scales had turned almost black with rage. It does not matter what you know. It does not matter what you suspect. Your world is defenseless. Your species is weak. We offered you mercy, and you threw it back in our faces. Now you will learn what it means to defy the Council. We're ready to learn that lesson, Han Solo said quietly. Are you? The delegation was expelled from the station immediately, their ship escorted by armed guards to the edge of Council space. As they departed, long-range sensors detected massive military movements. The three powers were mobilizing their fleets, preparing for war. Inside the human ship, Ji-Woo looked terrified. We just declared war on half the galaxy. No, Han Solo corrected. They declared war on us 50 years ago. We just stopped pretending we didn't notice. He activated the communication system. This is Ambassador Kim to Earth Command. Peace talks have failed. Repeat, peace talks have failed. All ships to combat readiness. We're coming home. In the darkness of space, hidden among the stars, the Shadow Fleet received the message and began to move. Humanity's secret was about to be revealed, and the galaxy would never be the same again. The mining station designated Outpost 7 had been operating in the asteroid belt for 40 years. It looked like every other mining facility, slowly processing rocks for valuable minerals. Alien observers had scanned it dozens of times over the decades and found nothing unusual. Just another human operation trying to scrape resources from space. But, when Fleet Admiral Young Hee Baek gave the order, Outpost 7 transformed. Panels slid away, revealing weapons that had been hidden for decades. The mining equipment retracted into the station's core, replaced by targeting systems and missile launchers. Within minutes, the harmless mining station became a fortress capable of destroying any ship that came within range. This transformation happened simultaneously across human space. On Europa's surface, what looked like research domes split open to reveal railgun batteries. Near Saturn's rings, cargo haulers shed their outer hulls like snakes shedding skin, exposing the warships beneath. Throughout the asteroid belt, dozens of stations revealed their true purpose. But, the real surprise waited in the Oort cloud, that dark and distant region at the edge of Earth's solar system. There, hidden in the cold and the dark, was the Shadow Fleet. 300 warships, built in secret over 50 years, using technology reverse-engineered from the very drones that had nearly destroyed Earth. They had waited patiently, crews training in silence, weapons tested where no alien eyes could see. Captain Taeyang Shin stood on the bridge of the dreadnought Defiance, humanity's largest and most powerful warship. He was a career military officer, had been in training since he was 18, preparing for a war he hoped would never come. Now that war was here, and he felt strangely calm. All ships reporting ready status, his second officer reported. Weapons charged, shields at maximum. We're ready to move on your order, Captain. Taeyang looked at the tactical display showing the entire solar system. Blue markers represented human forces, now visible for the first time. Red markers showed the approaching alien fleets, hundreds of ships coming from 3 different directions. The Thessic Empire from the galactic north, the Vorn Collective from the east, and the Krell Swarm from below the ecliptic plane. A coordinated attack designed to overwhelm Earth's defenses. Except Earth had defenses they never suspected. Begin the decloak sequence, Taeyang ordered. Let them see what they're really facing. Across the fleet, stealth systems shut down. Suddenly, 300 warships appeared on every scanner in the system. The effect was immediate and shocking. Alien communications channels exploded with confused chatter. How had humanity built such a fleet? Where had they been hiding? Why hadn't the Council detected them? On Earth, in the command center, Admiral Young Hee watched the alien fleets hesitate. For just a moment, the unstoppable tide of ships slowed, confusion rippling through their ranks. She allowed herself a cold smile. Broadcast on all channels, she ordered. Let them hear what we have to say. Her face appeared on screens across the solar system, visible to every ship, human and alien alike. This is Fleet Admiral Young Hee Beck of the United Earth Defense Force. 50 years ago, you came to our world with weapons and threats. You told us we were weak, that we needed your protection. You were right that we were weak. But you forgot something important about humanity. We learn. We adapt. We prepare. She gestured at the tactical display behind her. What you see now is not weakness. This is not a defenseless species begging for mercy. This is humanity, armed and ready. We did not want this war. We came to your council seeking peace, seeking friendship. You responded with invasion plans and slavery. So now we will show you what happens when you threaten Earth. The transmission ended. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then, the alien fleets began to move again, slower now, more cautious. They had numerical superiority, nearly 3 ships for every human vessel, but the balance of power had shifted. This was no longer a simple conquest. This was war. On the council station, in the emergency session that followed the human broadcast, pandemonium reigned. Smaller species were demanding explanations. How had the council missed an entire military buildup? Why hadn't intelligence services detected the shadow fleet? Some species were quietly pleased, enjoying watching the mighty powers caught off guard. Vaktar stood before the assembly, his scales dark with rage. This changes nothing. We still outnumber them. We still have superior technology. These primitives have built copies of our own weapons. They have nothing we haven't seen before. Are you certain? A voice called from the upper tiers. It belonged to a species that had remained neutral for centuries. Humanity has had 50 years to improve upon what they captured. 50 years to innovate. Perhaps they have surprises you haven't considered. There are no surprises in war, Vaktar growled. Only victory and defeat. And humanity will learn the meaning of defeat. Back in the Sol system, the first contact was about to happen. A Thessic destroyer, moving ahead of the main fleet, encountered a human patrol group near Neptune's orbit. 3 human frigates against 1 alien destroyer. The Thessic captain was confident. One of his ships was worth 5 human vessels, according to all intelligence reports. He fired first, energy weapons lancing across space. The human ship scattered, their shields absorbing the blast but taking damage. The Thessic captain prepared for another volley, certain of an easy victory. Then, the human ships fired back. What hit his vessel wasn't energy weapons or plasma. It was solid metal, accelerated to a significant fraction of light speed by electromagnetic rails. The rounds punched through his shields like they weren't there, tore through his hull, and exploded inside his ship. Alarms screamed. Entire sections vented into space. His destroyer, moments ago confident and powerful, was crippled. Retreat, he ordered, but it was too late. The human frigates had already launched missiles, dozens of them, moving in evasive patterns his targeting systems couldn't track. They slammed into his dying ship, and the destroyer exploded in a brilliant flash. The human patrol group moved on, leaving debris behind. They had taken damage but nothing critical. And they had sent a message to the rest of the alien fleet: this would not be an easy fight. Communications officer Min Ji Han was monitoring all channels from her station aboard the Defiance. She listened to the panic in the alien transmissions, the confusion, the fear. Captain, they're requesting clarification from their command. They don't understand how we penetrated their shields. Let them wonder, Taeyong replied. What's the status of the main fleets? Thessic Empire will reach Mars orbit in 6 hours. Vorn Collective is approaching from the direction of Jupiter, they'll arrive in 8 hours. Krell's swarm is coming up from below, estimated arrival 10 hours. They're not coordinating their attack, Taeyong observed. Too much pride, each power wants the glory of taking Earth alone. That works in our favor, his tactical officer said. We can engage them separately instead of all at once. Taeyong studied the displays, mind racing through strategies and countermeasures. We'll let the Thesic come to Mars. Let them think they're making progress. Then, we'll show them what a real defensive position looks like. On Mars, the orbital defense platforms had been preparing for this moment for decades. The Red Planet had been militarized in secret, its mines and research stations hiding weapons and soldiers. When the Thesic fleet arrived, confident and eager for battle, they found not a helpless planet but a fortress. The platforms opened fire simultaneously, hundreds of railguns sending metal death toward the alien ships. The Thesic shields held against the first volley, but barely. Their return fire was met with human fighters, small and fast, darting between capital ships like angry insects. These weren't the clumsy drones the aliens were used to fighting. These were piloted by humans, unpredictable and aggressive. Jae-hoon Kwon was one of those pilots, flying his fighter through a storm of weapons fire. He had trained for this his entire adult life, practicing in simulators and in secret exercises far from Earth. Now, finally, he was putting that training to use. His fighter's AI-assisted targeting locked onto a Thesic cruiser's vulnerable points, and he fired a burst from his plasma cannons. The shots hit exactly where they needed to, overwhelming a shield generator. The cruiser's protection flickered and died, and the Mars platforms finished it off. This is Red 7, Jae-hoon called over the comm, cruiser destroyed. Moving to next target. Copy that, Red 7, the flight controller responded. You've got 3 more cruisers in your sector. Make them count. The battle raged around Mars for 2 hours. The Thesic fleet kept expecting the humans to break, to scatter, to show fear. Instead, they fought with a ferocity that shocked even the warrior species. Every ship that was damaged fell back to be replaced by fresh vessels. Every defensive platform that was destroyed had backup systems ready to activate. The humans weren't just defending. They were teaching the Thesic what it meant to attack Earth. When the Thesic fleet finally withdrew, limping back toward the outer system, they had lost 40 ships. The humans had lost 12 platforms and 6 fighters. It was a devastating exchange ratio, and every species watching from across the galaxy knew it. On the council station, the emergency session had fallen silent as the battle reports came in. Vokhtar stood rigid, refusing to show weakness, but his scales had paled to a sickly gray. This is a temporary setback. The Vorn and Krell fleets will succeed where we faced unexpected resistance. But, in the command center on Earth, Admiral Young He was already preparing for the next engagement. They learned we have kinetic weapons, she said to her staff. Now let's show them what else we've developed. Contact Dr. Su Jin-yoon. Tell her it's time to deploy the resonance disruptors. Su Jin-yoon had spent 20 years developing weapons specifically designed to counter alien technology. She knew the Vorn Collective's crystalline ships used harmonic frequencies to maintain their structure and power their weapons. She had built devices that could shatter those frequencies, turn their strength into weakness. Now she would get to see if her theories worked in actual combat. The Vorn fleet approached Jupiter, their crystalline ships glowing with inner light, beautiful and deadly. They were confident. They had heard about the Thesic defeat but assumed it was due to Thesic arrogance and poor tactics. The Vorn prided themselves on being more sophisticated, more intelligent. They were about to learn that intelligence meant nothing if you underestimated your enemy. The Vorn Collective approached Jupiter with what they believed was overwhelming force. 200 crystalline warships glided through space, their surfaces reflecting starlight in patterns that were almost hypnotic. Inside each ship, crew members worked in perfect harmony, their consciousness partly linked through the crystalline matrix that powered their technology. They had conquered dozens of species using these same vessels. They saw no reason why humanity would be different. Chancellor Luminex itself commanded the fleet from the flagship Eternal Radiance. The crystalline being pulsed with confidence, its light steady and bright. "Prepare resonance weapons," it ordered. "We will disable their fleet without destroying them. These humans will make better servants if we don't reduce their numbers too severely." The Vorn ships began to emit a high-frequency pulse, a weapon designed to overload enemy electronics and scramble the neural systems of organic crews. It had worked on every species they had ever faced. The pulse washed over the human defensive line near Jupiter's orbit, and, for a moment, the Vorn believed they had won. Then, the human ships fired back, and everything went wrong. Dr. Su Jin-Yun watched from the research vessel Galileo, her hands trembling with anticipation. She had spent 2 decades on this project, studying captured Vorn technology, learning how their crystalline matrices worked. She had discovered that the same harmonic frequencies that gave them power could be turned against them. Her resonance disruptors were designed to do exactly that. "Disruptors active," the weapons officer reported. "Targeting the Vorn flagship." Invisible waves of counter-resonance swept across space, hitting the Eternal Radiance directly. The effect was immediate and catastrophic. The crystalline structure that held the ship together began to vibrate at frequencies it wasn't designed to handle. Cracks appeared along the hull, spreading like spider webs. Inside, Chancellor Luminex felt pain for the first time in centuries as its own crystalline form began to fracture. "Retreat!" Luminex ordered, its voice distorted by the damage. "All ships, emergency withdrawal." But, it was too late for many of them. Across the Vorn fleet, ships began to shatter. Not exploding, but breaking apart as their fundamental structure failed. Pieces of crystalline hull drifted through space, still glowing faintly with residual power. Nearly 50 Vorn ships were destroyed or crippled in the first minute of combat. The surviving vessels fled, their confidence shattered along with their comrades. They had expected an easy victory. Instead, they had encountered a weapon specifically designed to counter their greatest strength. Commander Hyunwoo Jang watched the Vorn retreat from the bridge of his stealth corvette, the Silent Wind. He commanded a squadron of 12 such ships, small vessels designed for hit-and-run attacks. While the Vorn had focused on the main defensive line, Hyunwoo had maneuvered his squadron behind their formation, using Jupiter's massive gravity well to mask their approach. "All ships, weapons free," he ordered. "Pick your targets and fire at will." The stealth corvettes opened up with missiles and railguns, hitting the Vorn ships from behind while they were still reeling from the resonance disruptors. It was like shooting fish in a barrel. Hyunwoo felt no satisfaction in it, only grim determination. These aliens had come to enslave his species. He would show them no mercy. By the time the Vorn fleet escaped Jupiter's orbit, they had lost nearly a third of their force. The humans had lost 2 ships. The news spread across the galaxy at the speed of light, transmitted by neutral observers who watched the battle in shock. The mighty Vorn collective, defeated by primitive humans. It seemed impossible, yet the evidence was undeniable. But, the worst was yet to come for the alien alliance. The Krell swarm was approaching from below the ecliptic plane, confident that their numbers would succeed where the Thesic and Vorn had failed. The Krell didn't rely on shields or advanced technology. They relied on overwhelming numbers, waves of ships that could absorb incredible damage and keep coming. Their fleet was massive, over 400 vessels, most of them drone fighters controlled by hive minds. They moved in perfect synchronization, a swarm of metal and death that had consumed countless civilizations. The Krell strategy was simple: overwhelm the enemy with targets, make it impossible to shoot them all down, and, eventually wear down any defense. It had always worked before. Ace pilot Jae-hoon Kwon led his squadron toward the approaching Krell swarm. He could see them on his sensors, hundreds of red dots moving in precise patterns. Any normal defense would be overwhelmed. But, humanity had developed something the Krell had never encountered: artificial intelligence integrated with human intuition. His fighter's AI could track and prioritize targets faster than any organic mind, while Jae-hoon provided the creativity and unpredictability that made him dangerous. Together, they were a weapon system the Krell couldn't comprehend. Red Squadron, engage Pattern Delta, Jae-hoon ordered. His squadron spread out, each fighter taking a different vector. Their AI systems linked together, sharing targeting data instantly, creating a coordinated defense that appeared chaotic but was actually precisely calculated. The Krell drones came in waves, firing as they approached. Jae-hoon's fighter danced between the incoming fire, his AI calculating trajectories and timing his movements perfectly. His weapons locked onto target after target, firing in bursts that seemed random but hit with devastating accuracy. Around him, his squadron did the same. The first wave of Krell drones died without landing a single hit. The second wave fared no better. The third wave actually broke formation, their hive mind confused by the response it was receiving. How were these human pilots destroying targets so quickly? How were they avoiding weapons fire that should have hit them? On the Krell command ship, Zitkra watched the battle with growing alarm. The swarm was supposed to be unstoppable, but these humans were cutting through the drones like they were nothing. Send in the second swarm, it ordered. Overwhelm them with numbers. Another 400 drones launched, flooding space with targets. Surely the humans couldn't track them all. Surely they would be overwhelmed. But they weren't. The human fighters kept fighting, kept destroying targets, kept adapting to every tactic the Krell employed. And, behind the fighter screen, human capital ships were picking off the Krell's larger vessels with precise railgun fire. Engineer Boare Song worked frantically on the defense platform Guardian 3, monitoring the weapon systems and making adjustments in real time. She could see the Krell tactics evolving, trying new approaches, and she modified the targeting algorithms to counter each change. This was what humanity was good at: adapting, improvising, learning on the fly. Krell are attempting to flank from Vector 9-7, her tactical officer called. Adjust targeting priority, Boare ordered. Redirect point defense batteries to cover that vector. And, deploy the surprise we prepared. Hidden among the defense platforms were weapons the Krell had never seen: electromagnetic pulse mines that could disable entire swarms of drones simultaneously. When the Krell attempted their flanking maneuver, they flew directly into the minefield. Hundreds of drones went dead in an instant, their systems fried by the EMPs. The battle raged for 6 hours. The Krell kept sending waves, kept trying to overwhelm the human defenses, kept believing that sheer numbers would eventually win. But, slowly, inevitably, their fleet was being torn apart. The humans weren't just defending anymore. They were hunting. On Earth, in a military hospital in Seoul, Dr. Eun-soo Choi treated wounded pilots and crew members brought back from the battle. The casualties were mounting, each one a person with a life, with family, with dreams. She worked through exhaustion, her hands steady even as her heart ached. This was the cost of freedom, she thought. This was the price they paid to remain independent. A young fighter pilot, barely 20 years old, looked up at her with pain-filled eyes. Did we win, Doctor? Are we winning? Yes, Eun-soo said gently, adjusting his four. We're winning. Earth is safe because of pilots like you. The pilot smiled weakly and closed his eyes. Eun-soo moved to the next patient, and the next, and the next. The wounded kept coming, and she kept treating them, hour after hour. On the Defiance, Captain Taeyong received reports from all 3 battle zones. The Thesic had withdrawn beyond Mars' orbit and showed no signs of attacking again soon. The Vorn had retreated past Jupiter, their fleet shattered and demoralized. And now the Krell swarm was breaking apart, their hive minds unable to process the losses they were taking. "Admiral Beck is ordering a general advance," his communications officer reported. "We're to pursue the retreating fleets and ensure they leave the Sol system." Taeyong nodded slowly. "All ships, form up. We're going on the offensive. Let's make sure they remember this day for the rest of their lives." The Shadow Fleet moved forward, no longer hiding, no longer defending. They were hunters now, chasing down the remnants of 3 mighty empires that had come to conquer Earth. The battle was turning into a rout. Across the galaxy, on the Council Station, the emergency session had descended into chaos. Smaller species were demanding explanations, asking why they should follow leaders who couldn't even defeat a species they had called primitive. The 3 great powers tried to maintain order, but their authority was crumbling. An ambassador from a species called the Velk stood and addressed the assembly. "For 2,000 years, you have told us we needed your protection. You told us we were weak, that we would be destroyed without your guidance. But, now we see the truth. You didn't protect us. You controlled us. And, when a species stands up to you, when they refuse to kneel, you can't even defeat them." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber. Other species began to speak up, voicing complaints that had been suppressed for centuries. The Council's iron grip on the galaxy was loosening, and everyone could feel it. Vokhtar tried to restore order, but his voice no longer carried the same authority. "This is a temporary setback. We will regroup and you will do nothing," a cold voice interrupted. It was Admiral Young Hee, her image projected into the Council chamber from Earth. "Your fleets are broken. Your pride is shattered. And, now, it's time for you to hear our terms." The chamber fell silent. Everyone stared at the human admiral's image. "Earth will be recognized as a sovereign power," Young Hee continued. "We will have a seat on this council, equal to any other species. You will withdraw all forces from human space and pay reparations for this attempted invasion. And, most importantly, you will never threaten humanity again." "And, if we refuse?" Vokhtar growled. Young Hee's smile was cold as ice. "Then, we'll finish what you started. We'll come to your worlds with our fleets and show you what it feels like to face a species that won't kneel. Your choice." The transmission ended, leaving the council in stunned silence. The galaxy had changed forever, and everyone knew it. The 3 great powers of the galaxy faced a choice they had never imagined having to make. For 2,000 years, they had been the ones issuing ultimatums, demanding submission, crushing resistance. Now, for the first time in their long history, they were the ones being threatened. The irony was not lost on the smaller species watching from the council chamber. Fleet Admiral Young Hee sat in her command center on Earth, studying the tactical displays. The alien fleets had withdrawn to the edge of the solar system, battered and broken. They could still pose a threat if they regrouped, but she had something they didn't: momentum. The Shadow Fleet was ready to strike, to push the advantage, to finish this war once and for all. But, she was also a realist. A total war with 3 galactic empires would cost millions of lives, maybe billions. If she could end this now, with words instead of weapons, she would prefer that. But, she wouldn't hesitate to use force if necessary. "Ma'am, we're receiving a transmission from the council station," her communications officer reported. "They're requesting to speak with Ambassador Kim directly." Young Hee nodded. "Put him through." Han Sol appeared on the screen, looking tired but determined. He was still aboard the human diplomatic vessel, having remained near the council station to monitor the situation. "Admiral. They want to negotiate. On whose terms? That's the interesting part. Vokhtar is arguing for continued resistance. Chancellor Luminex is advocating for a strategic retreat to regroup. But, some of the smaller species are calling for a complete restructuring of the council. They're using our victory as justification to challenge the three powers' authority. Young He allowed herself a small smile. We broke more than their fleets. We broke their mystique. Yes. And, now everyone is watching to see what we do next. The decision to launch a strategic strike came from the United Earth Council after 12 hours of debate. It would be precise, limited, and devastating. The goal was not to conquer or destroy, but to prove beyond any doubt that humanity could strike at the heart of any enemy that threatened Earth. Captain Taeyong received the orders while the Defiance was patrolling near Mars. He read them twice, making sure he understood correctly. We're going to attack their home systems. Simultaneous strikes on military targets in Thessic, Vorn, and Krell space, his executive officer confirmed. Show them nowhere is safe if they come after us. It was a bold move, maybe even reckless. But, Taeyong understood the strategy. The aliens had come to Earth expecting an easy victory. Now Earth would go to them and show them what real power looked like. The Shadow Fleet split into 3 task forces. Each would strike at a key military installation in enemy territory, then withdraw before heavy resistance could arrive. It was a message: humanity could reach anywhere in the galaxy, and there was nowhere to hide. Taeyong led the force targeting the Thessic Empire. They jumped into FTL space using drives that had been improved far beyond the original alien designs. The Thessic would never see them coming. Meanwhile, on the Council Station, Ambassador Han Sol found himself in an unexpected position. Smaller species were approaching him privately, asking about Earth's intentions. Would humanity become the next galactic bully? Would they replace the three powers with their own empire? One such species was the Mekler, a peaceful people who had been under Vorn protection for 300 years. Their ambassador, a being of flowing water held together by a containment field, spoke carefully. Ambassador Kim, our people have watched your broadcasts. We have seen your strength. But, we must ask, what do you want from the galaxy? Han Sol considered the question carefully. It was one he had asked himself many times. We want what any species wants. The right to exist freely. The right to determine our own future. The right to trade and learn and grow without someone else's boot on our neck. And, if other species want the same, then, we'll help them achieve it. We didn't fight for dominance. We fought for freedom. And, we believe every species deserves that same freedom. The Mekler ambassador's containment field rippled, a sign of emotion. Those are words we have not heard from a powerful species in a very long time. News of the human strikes reached the Council Station before the task forces even returned. All 3 attacks had been successful. A Thessic shipyard had been destroyed, decades of construction work gone in minutes. A Vorn crystal growing facility, essential for building their ships, had been shattered. A Krell breeding complex, where their drones were created, had been reduced to rubble. The message was clear: Earth could hurt them where they lived, and there was nothing they could do to stop it. Vokhtar's scales had turned from black to a sickly yellow, a color the Thessic only displayed in extreme stress. They struck at our home systems. How did they even get past our defenses? Because their technology is better than ours, Chancellor Luminek said bitterly, its crystalline form dim with defeat. We assumed they were primitives. We were wrong. Zitkra's mandibles clicked slowly, the Krell's version of thoughtful consideration. We cannot win this war. Not now, perhaps not ever. They have shown us mercy by limiting their strikes. If we continue, they may not be so merciful next time. For the first time in 2,000 years, the 3 great powers agreed on something: they had lost. The ceasefire agreement was signed 3 days later. The terms were exactly as Admiral Young He had demanded. Earth would be recognized as a sovereign power with full council membership. All alien forces would withdraw from human space immediately. Reparations would be paid to cover the cost of Earth's defensive operations. And, most importantly, humanity would be left alone to chart its own course among the stars. But, the agreement included something else, something that surprised even the human delegation. 17 species requested immediate defense pacts with Earth. They wanted humanity's protection, wanted to stand under the same umbrella that had shattered 3 empires. Strategic advisor Dong Hyun Kong found himself negotiating these new alliances. He was a careful man, methodical and precise, perfect for the delicate work of building a new power structure. "We need to be careful," he warned Han Sol. "If we take on too many protectorates, we become what we fought against." "Then, we don't make them protectorates," Han Sol replied. "We make them allies. Equal partners. We share technology, we trade freely, we defend each other. But, we don't rule them." It was a radical idea in a galaxy that had known only hierarchy and domination. But, it was also an idea whose time had come. The smaller species were tired of being treated as property. They wanted partners, not masters. The formal ceremony took place on the council station 6 weeks after the war ended. Ambassador Han Sol stood before the full council, wearing his formal hanbok, representing not just Earth but the 17 species that had chosen to align with humanity. The chamber was packed, every species in the galaxy represented. Chancellor Luminex, still dimmed from the defeat, spoke first. "The Council recognizes Earth as a sovereign power and grants them full membership. Let it be recorded that humanity has earned their place among the stars through strength and determination." It was a gracious speech, considering the circumstances. Han Sol bowed respectfully. "Earth accepts this recognition. We come not as conquerors but as equals. We seek cooperation, not domination. We offer our hand in friendship to all species who value freedom and independence." Vokhtar stood next, his scales now a neutral gray. "The Thessic Empire acknowledges its defeat. We will honor the terms of the ceasefire." He paused, then added something unexpected. "We will also learn from this experience. Perhaps we have been too arrogant, too certain of our superiority. Humanity has taught us a valuable lesson." Zitkra spoke last, its mandibles moving in what might have been respect. "The Krell swarm recognizes that the galaxy has changed. We must adapt or be left behind. Perhaps it is time for new ways, new alliances." The ceremony ended with the official signing of the treaty. Han Sol's signature joined those of the 3 great powers and 17 other species, creating a new power block that would reshape galactic politics for generations. But, the real celebration happened on Earth. In Seoul, in New York, in Lagos, in Buenos Aires, in every city across the planet, people gathered to watch the broadcasts. They had survived. They had fought back. They had won. In a military hospital, Dr. Eun-Soo Choi watched the ceremony with her patients. The young fighter pilot she had treated weeks ago sat beside her, his injuries healed enough to leave bed. "We really did it," he whispered. "We actually won." "We did," Eun-Soo confirmed. "And, we did it because people like you were willing to fight for our freedom." On the Defiance, Captain Taeyang stood on his bridge, watching the stars. The ship was heading home, finally, able to return to Earth without fear of attack. His crew was exhausted, several had been wounded, and they had lost good people in the fighting. But, they had won, and that made the sacrifice meaningful. "Captain," his communications officer called. "We're receiving a priority transmission from Fleet Admiral Beck." Young-hee's face appeared on screen, and, for the first time since the war began, she was smiling. "All ships, this is Fleet Command. Stand down from combat alert. War is over. Welcome home, Defiance. Welcome home." The bridge crew erupted in cheers. Taeyang allowed himself to smile, feeling the tension of the past weeks finally release. They had done the impossible. They had stood against empires and won. Pilot Jae-hoon Kwon landed his fighter in Earth's atmosphere for the first time in 2 months. The planet looked beautiful from orbit, blue and green and alive. He had fought to protect this world, and he would do it again if necessary. But, for now, he was just happy to be home. Engineer Boare Song dismantled the defense platforms she had worked so hard to maintain, converting them back to peaceful purposes. The weapons would remain, hidden but ready, just in case. Humanity had learned the most important lesson: stay vigilant, stay prepared, stay strong. Ambassador Han Sol returned to Earth 3 months after the war ended. He stepped off the shuttle to find thousands of people waiting to greet him. They cheered as he emerged, the diplomat who had stood firm when empires demanded submission. But Han Sol knew the truth: he was just one person. The victory belonged to everyone who had contributed, from the soldiers who fought to the engineers who built the ships to the civilians who kept society functioning during the crisis. He gave a speech that day, one that would be remembered for generations. 50 years ago, we encountered the galaxy and nearly died. We could have given up, could have accepted whatever fate others chose for us. But we didn't. We prepared. We learned. We adapted. And, when they came with chains, we met them with steel. This is who we are. This is what it means to be human. We don't kneel. We don't surrender. We stand, together, and we face whatever challenges come with courage and determination. The crowd roared its approval. Earth had changed. Humanity had changed. They had gone to the stars seeking peace and found war instead. But, in that war, they had discovered their true strength. Years later, historians would look back on this period as the turning point in galactic history. The moment when the old order fell and a new one began. The moment when a small species from a backwater planet called Earth proved that freedom was worth fighting for, and that even the mightiest empire could fall if they underestimated the determination of people who refused to be slaves. The galaxy had tried to subjugate humanity. Instead, humanity had shown the galaxy a different path. A path where strength didn't mean domination, where power didn't require oppression, where different species could stand as equals rather than as masters and servants. The peace talks had failed. But, from that failure, something better had emerged. Not peace through submission, but peace through mutual respect. Not harmony through fear, but harmony through understanding. And, at the center of it all stood humanity, armed and ready, watching the stars with eyes that had seen war and chosen peace, but never at the cost of freedom. They had come to the peace talk seeking cooperation. When that failed, they had shown the galaxy their teeth. And, now, finally, they could show the galaxy their true nature, strong but fair, powerful but just, ready for war but hoping for peace. Earth's place among the stars was secure, earned not through submission but through courage. And the message was clear to all who watched: never mistake kindness for weakness, never mistake patience for cowardice, and never, ever threaten humanity unless you're prepared for the consequences. The Shadow Fleet remained, hidden in the darkness, ready to emerge if needed. Because humanity had learned the most important lesson of all: peace is precious, but freedom is priceless. And, sometimes, the only way to preserve both is to be ready to fight for them.